Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Beyond the ARC podcast. I am Rob Howes alongside Josh Stauner. Josh, how are you doing today?
I'm doing amazing, Rob. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic as always. And of course, we are alongside Austin Young as well. Austin, how are you doing today?
Also doing well. Just got done with a jazz retreat for a jazz band here at Simpson, and a little tired, but we're going to push through to get through this podcast today.
Absolutely, and it's crossover season in the American Rivers Conference, which means fall sports are just about to come to a close, but winter sports are just about to start. Some have already started, some are starting this week, and we'll cover all of it here on the Beyond the ARC podcast. But first off, Josh, women's soccer regular season comes to a close. Postseason play has begun. What have you got for us?
So I'll start off just talking about how the standings looked at the end of the year. Winning the American Rivers Conference title is the University of Dubuque. They went 7-0-1, and that win that they got against Loras is what they needed to push them to their first conference title since 2014. Loras, of course, finished second. They were 6-1-1, and they had actually a poor end to the season. They obviously started off very well, going undefeated and getting big wins, but that loss to UD, and then they had a goalless tie against Central to close out the season. So they had a pretty poor end to the season for their standards. In third place, Simpson was 6-2. Behind them, Wartburg was 4-3-1. Central followed in fifth place, 3-3-2. And sixth was Luther, 3-4-1. Seventh, Nebraska Wesleyan finished 2-4-2. Eighth place, Buena Vista finished 1-7. And in last, Co 0-8.
Absolutely. So with that, it's time to go back to our preseason predictions for the American Rivers Conference. It was a close battle. The way I scored this is however far off we were with a single team. So say we had the University of Dubuque in first place in the conference, we would have gotten 0 points for that. If we had them finishing second, we would have gotten 1 point, and so on for how far off we were. And the final score, lowest score wins, Rob 10, Josh 12, and it was really very close. Both of us at the bottom of the rankings screwed a little bit up, but what really hurt Josh was putting the University of Dubuque down in fifth place behind Central. He had Loras winning it. He then had Wartburg, then Simpson, then Central, then the University of Dubuque.
Josh, what were you thinking? Like
University
of Dubuque
idea.
fifth?
And we had known that from the get-go. I even said there's no way Central doesn't get fifth in this conference. I thought they would have gone 4-4 in conference, not quite 3-3-2, and that really came down to the last day. But I beat Josh 10-12, a very close battle on the women's soccer side. So Josh, postseason now officially underway. What do you got for us?
So to start off, the fifth seed Central got a 3-2 win over four seed Wartburg. The 3 seed Simpson got a 2-1 win against the 6 seed Luther after overtime here in Indianola. And then on Wednesday, we will see that 1 seed University of Dubuque go against Central, and Simpson will go against the number 2 seed Loras, with the championship game being on Saturday.
Do you have any predictions for those games, Josh?
I'm going to say the championship game will be Dubuque and Loras, and I think Dubuque will do the double on Loras and get the win.
You know, I'm going to have to agree with you to the start of that. I think UD will beat Central. I think they will beat them pretty easily. I think the University of Dubuque will be ready for that match against the Dutch. I think Loras will beat Simpson, just their style of play. This year, Simpson doesn't play very well against that faster pace, not necessarily fast pace, but just Loras style of soccer. It's kind of hard to say. But then in the championship, I don't want to say this because I love Coach Jason Verna, but I think Loras will pull it off against the Spartans. I'd love to see the University of Dubuque pull off another win against the Dewhawks, but I think I'm going to have to pick Loras to win the conference championship. Austin, what are your predictions here?
So I agree with both of you on the fact that I think the University of Dubuque picks Central, because as a Simpson student, I think I can never pick Central to win anything here. But in that Simpson-Loras game, I got to agree with Rob. I think Simpson will get ultimately knocked out of the postseason to Loris. We've seen this twice in a row in the conference championship game, so it's around earlier than it has been the last few years. But just like you mentioned, that 3-0 loss Simpson had earlier in the year to Loris was kind of a preview of what could happen if Loris is on their A game. And so ultimately on Saturday, first of all, the crowd there, I hope, is going to be unbelievable, as there's no other sports for UD except for maybe basketball or wrestling. Don't know. We'll be on the road. I know UD will talk about football-wise later on the episode. But soccer fans and soccer parents can get crazy, and especially in-town rival a block or a mile away. Ultimately, it's really hard to beat a team twice. So I would have to give the edge to Loris over the University of Dubuque.
And I would even go as far as saying Dubuque soccer parents can get very crazy. In the city of Dubuque, soccer's a very big sport, especially at the youth level. I know University of Dubuque head coach Jason Berna is in charge of one of the biggest soccer organizations in Dubuque for youth soccer. So I'm sure he's going to be encouraging a lot of families to go out to that game. They want to watch some very good soccer on Saturday, assuming it's Dubuque Loris. We can't ever assume anything really in this conference, but if it is Dubuque versus Loris and they have to head to the University of Dubuque, it'd be a great game. But now we will head to the men's soccer side with some end of season standings and some postseason play. Josh, what do you got on the men's side?
So as far as the standings, it was actually really close in basically the top 5 teams this year. Luther was able to get the regular season title with just a 4-0-4 record. They were able to get it though. They shared the title with Wartburg. They beat them 1-0 on the final match day of the regular season, and Wartburg would have won the title outright if it wasn't for that loss. So Luther and Wartburg shared the regular season title. Behind them in third was Loris, 4-1-3. Central was in fourth, also 4-1-3. Nebraska Wesleyan follows in fifth, 4-2-2. Simpson in sixth, 2-3-3. UD in 7th place, 2-4-2, and then the last 2 spots, Co 2-6 and BV 0-8.
Absolutely. Now we go back to the preseason standings predictions, and what do you know? Rob wins again over Josh. I take down Josh 10-14. It's very close battle again up towards the top. Both of us had Simpson finishing third. They ended up finishing 6th. But Josh, this time you had Central finishing in 8th in your preseason predictions. So you had them a bit too high before, and you had the University of Dubuque finishing, I think, 4th or 5th in the standings. So that's what ultimately got you there. Central and Dubuque, both men's and women's side. That's what upped your points. But I beat Josh 10-14. So I'm 2-0 on predictions, as we'll make our basketball predictions later on in the episode, so stay tuned for that. Austin will be a part of those ones. We still have our volleyball and football ones currently ongoing. We'll talk about those volleyball-wise next week, football the week after, but still some games to be played on that side. So men's soccer still going on. First round of the playoffs. Josh, what happened there?
No upsets in playoffs so far. 4-seed Central got a 2-0 win over 5-seed Nebraska Wesleyan, and then the 3-seeded Loris got a big 7-0 win over 6-seeded Simpson at the Rock Bowl. On Wednesday, we'll then see the 1-seed Luther go against Central and the 2-seed Wartburg against number 3-seed Loris, with the championship for that one also being on Saturday.
Yeah, and question for you both. Sorry, me cut you off, but I have a quick question for mainly Rob, but Josh, you're always welcome to input. So for Luther and Wartburg coming off those buys, does that, like, extra practice time good for a team? Because, like, I know sometimes in football we will see, like, sometimes like a bye or rest weekend will kind of like throw them off routine and playing. But in soccer, I mean, there's times where they can go a week without playing. So just kind of curious on your thoughts on those, and even in the women's side too, like Loris and UD not playing, but then coming back, especially the way Loris ended their season on the women's side. Does that, like, time off help them at all?
Oh, you always want the bye in a soccer sense. You always want that bye to get an extra week's rest. It's, in my opinion, it's not that long. It's maybe a week, where football, you can't have 2 full weeks off from game to game. I think you always want that bye. I don't know, Josh, you're the soccer player here. What's your opinion on that?
Yeah, you absolutely want the bye because it gives you another game to watch film, study film, see how your matchup plays under pressure, and adjust the way you practice that week to kind of fit how you expect you should beat that team, kind of practice around that and work on things that you think will stand out and be able to win you that game.
Josh, what do you got for predictions for Wednesday and Saturday here in the men's soccer side?
So I think I still don't think I have any upsets, honestly. I think 1 seed Luther is going to take down Central, and then the 2 seed Wartburg will win against Loris, but I think that will be a really close competitive game. Both really, really good teams. And then as for the championship, I think Wartburg will get the win there. We saw they're just so fast up top, and honestly, their front 3 is lethal, and I think that can help them definitely win that championship game on Saturday.
Absolutely. Austin, your opinions?
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know too much about men's soccer, so knowing that this conference and seeing Wartburg play in person, I will probably say they will beat Loris, and then Luther will beat Central. And ultimately, like I said earlier, it's really hard to beat a team twice, so I would probably give the nod to Wartburg over Luther. And and then especially seeing how Wartburg plays once they get a lead or tie. The way they just back off and just make you come get it, and then I don't think Luther will be able to do that twice.
Absolutely. I think this Luther Central game, I think this one could turn into a little bit of a blowout, which with Luther, I feel like a 2-0 game is a blowout. The way that they play very defensive. They don't attack unless they really see an opening to attack, but I think Luther will score 1 early against Central and then tack 1 on little bit later on, maybe towards the end of the first half, and just hold a 2-0 lead over Central. Now with Wartburg and Loris, these 2 teams, I think it matters where this game is played. Wartburg plays their games on grass. Loris plays on turf. Loris undefeated at home this year. Not a fantastic team on the road. They tie a lot of games when they play on the road. But I'm going to go with Wartburg in this one just because the game is played on grass. Loris's style works very well on turf. They like those higher bounces, but I am going to go with Wartburg. And I'm going to be the same as you guys. I'm going to go with Wartburg over Luther in that championship game, and I think they make it to the NCAA tournament once again.
Yeah, and say if any of these games go to an overtime, like ends in a draw at the end of regulation, this year it changed to a golden goal. Who would you give the nod to in both those games if it came down to that?
Which it's been a golden goal the last couple of years, but it changed not too long ago. But I know last year we were told in the press box that it would be a golden goal if a game were to go into overtime. I don't see Luther winning a game in overtime. The way that they play, I think Luther would have to send that one to penalty kicks, which in that case, I think they win. I think Luther, just the way they play, they have a lot of guys that are shaped to put a ball in the right spot in the net, and I think they will win in penalty kicks. I think Loris is the team you don't want to play if you go to overtime. They can beat you on very quickly in overtime. A golden goal, they know they just need 1. I think Loris would be the team you don't want to play against if this one goes into overtime. So now we head to the cross-country side of things. Conference meet in Dubuque this past weekend, and it was the hometown heroes getting the job done on the men's side. Isaiah Hammerand of Wartburg, the Western Dubuque grad. I believe I saw a article in the Telegraph-Herald, the Dubuque newspaper, that Hammerand has run at that course 9 times now in his career, 8 of them in high school. Now, once in college, getting the win. I've run there, I believe, 12 times if you count high school and middle school. I ran there 13 times now, got a very big PR, so I was very happy about that. So on the men's side, Isaiah Hammerand and Wartburg with the first ever perfect score in a conference meet. We knew it was possible. I thought Isaac Bourne might have had a chance to break up that perfect Wartburg 5. He got 6th. So Wartburg with the first ever perfect score, still ranked 2nd in the country, easily going to make nationals as long as They just run a normal race at the regional meet. They can even run a bad race for them, and they would still make the national meet. Wartburg women showed up very well. They have a very good pack. They're about 3 through 7 runners are going to be very tight at the regional meet. I think they're safely into nationals if they run decent at the regional meet on their home course. So I think they will. The winner of the women's meet was Keely Lightson, a newcomer, also from Dubuque, Iowa, runs for Loris, went to Dubuque Hempstead High School. We've talked about her a couple times on our podcast, but she ran very well, outkicked Peyton Steffen, which not many runners in the past few years have been able to outkick Peyton Steffen of the Central Dutch. Lightson does it this past weekend. And along with that, the Loris men showed up, ran very well, getting second. I think as long as they finish where they're supposed to, ranked regionally on Saturday the 15th, I think they will be heading to nationals as well. I think if Central beats them, there's a chance. I think if Simpson and Central beat them, that's when it's going to get really interesting how many teams in the region are going to make the national meet. So it's going to be very fun in Waverly on the 15th. I know I will be heading up there to watch, and should be a very good time, good crowd on a great course up in Waverly. So next, we will head to the volleyball side. Josh, we know the 6 qualified teams. What do you got for us?
So yeah, like you said, we know the 6 teams that are in. There is still 1 game to go, though, for everybody except Nebraska Wesleyan. University of Dubuque still at the top, still undefeated, 7-0, and they will win outright unless they somehow get upset by Loris, who is 7th, 2-5. I just don't see that happening. I think it should be a very easy blowout win for UD. Co is in second place at 6-1. They are guaranteed the 2 seed with that spot and the first round bye in the playoffs. And there is a big fight for the 3 seed this year. Rob, can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So the fight for the 3 seed right now, Central, Simpson, and Wartburg. Central has the 3-way tie at the moment over all of those teams. Wartburg has the most difficult match. They play against Co this coming week, and Simpson plays against Luther. Central plays BV. Assuming Simpson and Central win as they should, both of those teams will be 5-3. That's when Wartburg gets involved. The Storm would be cheering for Co, as Simpson has the head-to-head win over Central this year. So if it's just Simpson and Central that are 5-3, Simpson would be the 3 seed, Central would be the 4 seed, Wartburg 5, and Nebraska Wesleyan 6, I believe. Nebraska Wesleyan might have beat Wartburg, actually. So one of those two would be 5 and 6. But if all 3 teams win, I believe it's Central, Simpson, and Wartburg in that order. So where Simpson would have to take on Wartburg once again, a team they lost 3-0 to, this time at Simpson. So Simpson in pretty good position of home court advantage, as well as Central. Wartburg needs a win and a hope for either a Simpson or Central loss. And the Nebraska Wesleyan, currently the 6th seed at 4-4. If one of those teams loses, it gets a little more complicated with tiebreakers, especially if multiple teams are 4-4. We'll figure that out when all of you figure that out when the bracket gets released this week. But yeah, Nebraska Wesleyan currently sitting at the 6th seed.
Yep, and we will see those final round of matches this Wednesday with about a week break before playoffs, which will begin next Tuesday.
Absolutely. So some decent games with Wartburg at Co, but not too many very competitive games this week. UD at Loris. Like you mentioned, it should be an easy win for UD. It's still a rivalry game, but when a rivalry game is played this late in the season, it just doesn't mean as much. Loris not really playing for anything. They're just playing to beat UD, which means they can pull out all the stops. But in a sport like volleyball, there's not really much you can do. The better team is going to win most of the time. So it's going to be really tough for Loris to win that game. Next up, we've got football. All of us were up in Dubuque at the Rock Bowl for the Simpson versus Loris game. Austin, what do you got for that one?
Oh, man, definitely a heart-racing game. I know I looked at Frank a couple of times, our producer, on the sidelines, giving him one of these, like checking my heart rate, because Simpson got up 21-0 at one point after a pick six by Mekhi Holmes. But then Loris, and we talked about it earlier this week, does not quit and shows a lot of grit and made it 21-6. But then Noah Craycraft and Jaden Thorson hooked up for a nice touchdown to make it 28-6. But then here came the Dewhawks. They made it all the way back to a 1-point game after an unbelievable fourth quarter. And going into the PAT, they got it blocked by Noah Noland, who is my American Rivers Conference Player of the Week. Just an unbelievable freshman, back-to-back American Rivers Conference Player of the Week for the football side. And just an unbelievable player. He has a bright future here at Simpson. But, yeah, that was an unbelievable game for Simpson. I don't know. I mean, there were definitely some good things. Obviously, that interception by Mekhi Holmes was a nice way to, as he's a senior and we only have 2 games left, so nice to see him get one on the defensive side. But that fourth quarter was really tough. I've never heard a locker room so quiet after a win. I'm not going to lie. I can't talk too much about what was said or anything, but let's just say it was quiet, and I've never felt that way after a win like that. So ultimately, this might go down as a moral loss. Now, in the end, Simpson does win 28-27 over the Dewhawks, but everybody who was at that game knows that it could have easily been slipped out of their hands, especially late in that game.
Absolutely. But there's a couple of things about this. One of them, as Nick Saban would always say when he was head coach at Alabama, these are the games, especially early in the year, more so, but these are the games that he liked as a coach, a game that you should win by a lot. It's a lot closer than he may have liked, but you end up getting the win. A lot to work on and practice, a lot to say, but what people look at is the record at the end of the year. In a year, nobody cares how you won the game. What matters is that you won the game. So that's really one thing, but the other is that kind of shows where Simpson's at as a program right now in a good way. If your team is mad after a loss, that's a lot better than being very happy that you won the game, barely sneaking out of your hands a few years ago. 28-27 win that you almost lost that one would have just been a party in the locker room. I feel like they went 1-9 a few years ago. Winning any game would have been huge, but overall, it's still a win in the scoring column. And once you head to the Central game next week, nobody really cares about that.
Absolutely. And especially with what happened last time, Simpson traveled up to the Rock Bowl. This was a good feeling to come out this time, was a win and playing a lot better than they did the last time we were up at the Rock Bowl.
Absolutely. And as you mentioned, Noah Noland, he was the male athlete of the week last week in the American Rivers Conference. This week, once again, the defensive player of the week on the football side. We always talk about Say McWilliams, only got 3 targets in this last game. Great job by Mekhi Holmes defensively to lock him down. McWilliams had a pair of catches, very big catches, broke a lot of tackles in that game, probably quadrupled number of catches with broken tackles in that game, but Storm defenders defended him very well. It's just Loris has a lot of receivers that are very good.
Yeah, and that's the scary part about Loris, especially as they look to hopefully close out the season on a positive note. I mean, obviously they play Code this week, so that's going to be a tough feat ahead of them, but that's what's scary about them is that if you close down one guy like they did, like Simpson did, was like MJ Burks and Mekhi Holmes guarding down Say McWilliams, there's other guys that are going to be easily able to step up for Loris. I mean, Isaac Oster caught the last 2 touchdowns. That's one guy that I don't know if many people like would have thought he's going to be able to almost win this game for Loris. So definitely a scary team on paper, and ultimately they have a lot of fight, and they will never quit no matter what the score is.
Absolutely. The rest of the football world in the American Rivers Conference, about as expected. Central takes care of BV 52-27. That game a little closer than Central would have liked in the first quarter. Then they really pulled away before BV scored a couple touchdowns very late in that game. Wartburg beat Nebraska Wesleyan the same way Wartburg's won almost all season long. Nebraska Wesleyan allowed 27 straight points after only being down 7-3 at the half, but that's just what Wartburg does. As long as they have a lead at the half, you know that they're going to be pulling away in that game as long as the other team is an inferior opponent almost all year long. We noticed last week Central was the only team really that's really battled them back in the second half this year. Simpson had a good battle with them in the second half earlier on this year, but Wartburg destroying Nebraska Wesleyan, winning that one 34-3. Then Co beating UD 19-7. UD up early in that one as well, but then Co ended up getting the win right there.
Yeah, and this week we got a couple of good games on tap. The big one, I think, is going to be Central coming to Indianola to play Simpson. This is going to tell us a lot about both teams. For Central, they control their own destiny, I think, at this point, as a one-loss American River Conference team, and that one loss being to Wartburg. They're controlling their own destiny as far as making a playoff at-large bid, but Simpson hopes to come spoil the party for the first time since 2013, hoping to defeat Central. And then, obviously, the UD is going to close their year out with a trip to Decorah to face Luther as they get the Week 10 bye. And then we'll have Nebraska Wesleyan at Buena Vista. And lastly, Loris, that gritty team, is going to travel to Cedar Rapids to see if they can try and keep it competitive with Co and try to see if they can sneak out a win.
Absolutely. And Co and Central right now, if both of them win this week, I think that last game of the year almost guaranteed to be for an at-large spot in the NCAA tournament, with Co's loss being to a River Falls team who just obliterated UW Whitewater, and then their other loss being to Wartburg. And then Central's one loss being to Wartburg right now. I think if Central wins that game, we're talking about a very good possibility of a 3-bid American Rivers Conference, with Wartburg already clinching the conference. They were the first team to actually clinch their spot in the postseason for NCAA Division III football. So should be really interesting to end the year, especially with Central and Co. Next up, talking about our winter sports. First off, I'll talk a little bit about wrestling. It's finally underway, men's and women's wrestling. Women's wrestling officially an NCAA sport for the first time ever, the 91st championship in the NCAA. Looking closer to finally getting 3 divisions in NCAA women's wrestling. Still only 1 division. I believe there's technically 3 divisions, but they all wrestle each other at the NCAA championships, which I believe are in Cedar Rapids this coming year, so it should be very fun being in Iowa for the NCAA Women's Wrestling Championship. Speaking of women's wrestling, Simpson versus Wartburg. Going to be a very good battle, projected number 1 and number 2 in the conference. That's right here in Indianola on Wednesday at 6 o'clock. And then on the men's side, should be a very good battle at the top of the conference this year. Of course, you got to say Wartburg's probably going to win the conference again, last year's national champion, but the University of Dubuque's very good. Loris has a very good team this year. Luther's good as well. Central, a lot of very good teams. One of the best conferences, probably the best conference in Division III men's wrestling. Always very fun to see. So good things coming on the wrestling side. But now it's time for the main event of today's episode. Basketball preseason predictions. We'll start off with men's predictions. Austin, 1 through 9, what do you got for us?
All right, so here we go. At number 1, finishing the best in this conference, I have the University of Dubuque. They finished second last year to my number 2 team, Nebraska Wesleyan. I think ultimately they're going to bring more guys back and hopefully get that conference spot. And as I just mentioned, Nebraska Wesleyan at 2. And then at 3, I have Loris. And then at 4, I will have the Central Dutch, followed by Wartburg, and then Co. And then at 7, I have Simpson. And then at the 8, Buena Vista, and then Luther. Last year in this conference is not going to do any better than 9th.
All right, there's Austin's preseason men's basketball predictions. Josh, what do you got for us?
So for the most part, I agree with you. At my 1, I do have UD. A lot of their stat leaders graduated. Their points per game, rebounds per game, and assists per game, they all graduated. The Conference Player of the Year, Jalen McCants, graduated. And as well, 3 of their starters graduated, but they did have the Rookie of the Year in the conference, Jacob Williams, and they have a really strong returning team. Most of the players that didn't start last year, but that got significant game time, were freshmen, so they will still be a really good team this year. At my number 2 spot, I have Loras. They have a really strong class of rising seniors. They had 2 all-conference juniors last year. And you look at who they typically started last year, usually 2 seniors, 2 juniors, and then there were 3 sophomores, kind of all got a mix into the starting 5. So they will be a very good team as well. Number 3, I have Nebraska Wesleyan. They are losing the Conference Defensive Player of the Year, Jack Groetzke. And similar to other teams, they're losing 3 starters. But just like most other teams, most of the players that got significant game time off the bench were sophomores or juniors. At number 4, I have Co. They had 2 juniors last year make all conference. They're going to be seniors. They're going to be hitting their stride. Number 5, I have Wartburg. They only graduated 3 players, and they're bringing back just a lot of players who will also be hope to hit their stride this year. Number 6, I have Central. They lost the conference's top scorer and rebounder in Joshua Van Gorp. So I think that'll drop them down a couple spots. But they only have 1 senior this year and 1 grad student, so hopefully they could make a run. Number 7, I also have Simpson, not losing too many seniors. And they're bringing back their top scorer, Levi Gerwell, along with several transfer students, should make them a pretty decent team. At my 8, I have Buena Vista. They're losing a pretty good chunk of their team from last year, not really bringing up many seniors or juniors. And in last place, Luther. They are losing their main scorer and rebounders from last year, and they do have lots of freshmen and sophomores this year, so they do have potential in the future.
All right, there's Josh's preseason rankings. We didn't see any of each other's preseason rankings before this, and Josh, just let me say, if you would have moved one team up from the bottom and pushed everybody else down, we would have had the exact same rankings. So let me go through mine. Number 1, I have the University of Dubuque. Here's the thing. This year, every team pretty much loses their best player. There's not many teams where their best player is coming back, especially on the top half of the conference. But Dubuque is just a very well-rounded team. Jacob Williams, Nick Kennedy, 2 freshmen last year, both local Dubuque high school players, both went to Dubuque seniors. So I broadcasted a few of their games in high school, both fantastic players. I think Jacob Williams has a chance to be the player of the year in the conference this year. It's going to be very, very tight at the top of the conference, though, between them and Loras. I think it's going to be a two-team battle really the whole year. Loras brings back a lot of good talent. They started a lot of different guys last year, but they have a good style of play that's going to travel very well from last year to this year. They aren't really a 3-point shooting team. They have guys that can shoot, but they play the ball down low. They have very good big guys. They've got a lot of good post players. I think Loras is going to finish second, but I think Dubuque and Loras both going to be very good teams. In third, I have Nebraska Wesleyan. Now, they lose a lot of production, but they still have a very good program. Their program has been at the top of the American Rivers Conference for pretty much the whole time they've been in the American Rivers Conference. They were fantastic when they were an NAIA school, so I'm going to have Nebraska Wesleyan at 3. In the 4 slot, I have Co. Co is bringing back a lot of production as well. The only thing with Co that really scares me, and it's the same as last year, they live and die by the 3-pointer. Last year, they died by the 3-pointer when they came to Simpson. Simpson took down Co in one of their 2 conference wins here in Indianola. But if Co can get a lot more production from guys down low, I think that they're going to be a very tough team to beat this year. Now in the 5 slot, this is where me and Josh differ. I've got the Beavers of Buena Vista. BV brings in head coach Jeff Horner. Jeff Horner was a fantastic coach at Truman State at the D2 level. He was an assistant coach at North Dakota that took North Dakota to their first ever NCAA tournament. He was Iowa's Mr. Basketball in high school. He's coming back near his hometown of Mason City. He was a fantastic player for the University of Iowa men's basketball team. He's probably now the best coach in the American Rivers Conference, in my opinion. He hasn't he hasn't had a season yet, so it's still definitely a chance that maybe his style of play doesn't transition over to the American Rivers Conference. But I have the Buena Vista Beavers in 5th. Next, I have Wartburg in 6th. They've been around that 5, 6, 7 spot pretty much the last 5 years or so, and I don't see them really moving. In 7, I have Central. I think losing Josh Van Gorp, in my opinion, last year's best player in the conference. Central just didn't get enough production from him in the regular season. He took them all the way to the NCAA tournament as the 4 seed last season. I think losing him is just too much for Central to overcome. I think they finish 7th. I think Simpson finishes 8th, just not enough big man presence. They have Marcus Hoppert this year, who I believe will take a pretty good jump. He played very well in the few games. He played consistent minutes last year, but they lose Matt Schubert, lose Caden Remeyer, lose some of their big guys that I don't think they'll be able to replace super easily with the new guys coming in. They'll have Cam Henderson back, who is by far the best player on this Storm team, out for a lot of last season with an injury, but was easily the best freshman guard for the team last year. And then in 9th as well, I do have Luther. I don't think they jump out of that 9 spot in their last year in the conference.
Overall, pretty similar. I mean, obviously I had Nebraska Wesleyan over Loras, but as we talk about crosstown rivalries there, we talk about it again. UD and Loras being at the top, and we'll see what happens when. Now, do teams play each other twice? I don't remember how this works.
Yep, two teams. Everybody plays each other twice, and both of those games, I imagine, will be sold out in Dubuque. So those will be very fun basketball to come. Dubuque Senior High School's got a good high school team once again this year. A lot of seniors that I can see a few of them possibly going to the University of Dubuque as well in the future.
All right, should we get to the women's side, yes?
Absolutely. It's time to get to the women's side. Austin, what do you got for us?
All right, so at the top, I think this might be agreed unanimously across the board. We'll see. I have the Wartburg Knights being at the top, followed by the Simpson Storm. Now, they do lose Molly Lutmer and Haley Rasmussen, 2 of your best players on the team, but they are returning players like Maddox DeVault, Doran Pop, who got some nice minutes off the bench last year, and then Ellie Street, who's on the women's soccer team right now. I think she's going to keep her presence known on the basketball side. And then I just think there's a lot of younger faces like Taylor Hansen and Carson Jacks who are going to make their presence more known in the starting lineup this year potentially. So we will see how the Simpson Storm does. But I have them at number 2, followed by the Cohawks College, and followed by Central, and then Luther. And then at 6, I have the University of Dubuque, followed by Loras. So those Dubuque teams kind of mid-stack towards the bottom. And then I have Buena Vista at the 8, and then Nebraska Wesleyan just not getting over a hump, especially with this tough conference. I just don't see them getting anywhere. Maybe they'll get a win this year, but ultimately I don't see them being any better than Knights.
All right, there's Austin's rankings for you. Josh, do we have Wartburg at the number 1 spot as well?
I do not. I have Co at the number 1 spot. They had the conference player of the year last year, Taylor Brunson, who was only a sophomore. She's got 2 years to go. And they had a junior and a freshman who also both made all conference. I think they have a very, very good season. As for Wartburg, I do think they slide into 2nd place. They did go undefeated last year, but they lose 4 starters who were all their top scorers. They lose their defensive player of the year, Sarah Faber. And you basically look at Wartburg's roster from last year, you look at their top players, nearly all of them were grad students, so they're all gone this year. They did have a couple juniors who definitely helped with production, but I just don't think they're going undefeated. I think they slide down into 2nd place. 3rd place, I have Luther. They had the rookie of the year last year, Natalie Beaver, and they also returned 2 all-conference players for this season, so they should have another very good year. 4th place, I have Central. Last year, they had 2 sophomores who made honorable mention all-conference, and it was a bit of a toss-up 4th place between Central and Simpson, but ultimately, end of the year last year when Central got the win over Simpson is how Simpson drops down below them to 5th place. They do lose their 2 best players, like Austin said, but they also return 2 other players who were all-conference, and they should still be a really good team this year. Loris in 6th place, they returned their top scorer, but they also lose 3 of their starters, and I definitely think that will affect them. In 7th place, I have Buena Vista. They are a very young team. If you look at their roster, a lot of freshmen, a lot of sophomores, and they bring back their 2 top scorers from last year who were only freshmen. So they could potentially slide up to maybe even 4th place, honestly. I think they will definitely be a dark horse team this year on the women's side. 8th place, I have UD. They only returned 2 of their starters from last year, and just like last year, kind of towards the bottom of the table. And last place, I have Nebraska Wesleyan, only 1 conference win last year, and was the only team to have no all-conference players. So I think they'll stay in last place this year as well.
All right, there you have it for Josh's women's basketball predictions. A little bit different for me here, Josh. I also have Co at the number 1 spot. I honestly don't think this is really going to be close. A lot of these teams, pretty much all of these teams outside of maybe Co and Luther, lose their best players on the upper half of the conference. Co brings back their 2 best players, Katie Kirkham and, like you said, Taylor Brunson, who best player in the conference, I think no doubt this year. Maybe one of the top players, could be fighting for an All-American spot, at least at the honorable mention level this year being her junior year. I think Taylor Brunson is a fantastic player. I think Co will be sniffing those national rankings. I know they're receiving votes in the preseason poll. It's a little tough to tell right now. So is Wartburg, who I have at the number 2 spot. Wartburg, just so many questions for that team. Like Josh said, they're, of course, going to be a good team. Wartburg women's basketball has been a great team for so many years. But I don't know. This year, there's just too many questions, and it's just going to be really interesting to see how this develops. The number 3 spot, I have Simpson. I think the thing with Simpson, of course, with losing Molly Lutmer is big. Losing Haley Rasmussen, probably just as big. Haley Rasmussen, last year, the 3-point percentage leader throughout men's and women's basketball across all of the NCAA. D1, D2, D3, Haley Rasmussen shot over 50%, or over 40% from downtown, maybe over 50%. I'm not exact sure what the number is, but Haley Rasmussen, the best 3-point shooter in the country at any level, men's or women's basketball last year for Simpson. Molly Lutmer, fantastic scorer, reached over 1,000 points along with Rasmussen last year. But the thing that Simpson does so well is their defensive style. So many teams last year just couldn't break the Storm's press early on in the game, and all of a sudden you're down by 15 and you don't know how. Because you have those players that are willing to hustle as much as they can defensively to set up that trap, set up that full court press the whole game. You have the player you need right now in Ellie Street, who I think is going to take a big step to stop that inbound pass and then be that middle person that has to stop that cross-court pass to open it up. But I think that the Storm's defense, the Storm's press, under Coach Nemeth is still going to be there, and teams aren't going to figure it out still. They've been playing this way for a few years now, and nothing's changed. The Storm defense has kept them in games and eventually won games for them a lot down the line. And in 4th, I have Luther. A lot like the Co men, they live and die a lot by the 3. They had 2 players last year that shot over 100 3-pointers, and if they're going in, that's great. But on a game where they're not sinking all the time, they're just, it's going to be tough for Luther to win those games. In 5th, I have Dubuque, kind of like the Dubuque men's team. Number 1 player, also Dubuque senior grad, Sam McDonald. She's going to be, in my opinion, most likely a first-team all-conference player this year. She was one of the top freshmen in the conference as a freshman, had a very good season last year. Then I think this year she takes another step up. They bring back a decent core, but she's going to have to be their best player. In the 6th spot, I have Central, made the conference tournament last year, upset Simpson there, so I have them in the 6. I have BV in the 7. I just don't think they take much of a big jump. I think Loris is decent again, but like Josh said, lose a lot of players. And Nebraska Wesleyan actually brings a lot of players back, but I have them in the 9. They just couldn't do too much a lot down the road.
Well, we will see about Wartburg right off the get-go. They host the Wartburg tip-off tournament starting this Friday. They will play Knox College first, but then on Saturday they're going to host the number 8 team, Johns Hopkins University. So we will see what that team looks like right off the get-go against a very good squad in Johns Hopkins.
Absolutely. Should be very fun for the men's and women's basketball side this season. All right. So not much going on around D3 that's necessary to talk about this week. We'll talk a lot about the NCAA playoffs next week on the show, especially with the big game in the ARC and the WIAC possibly getting multiple bids. But now it's time for everybody's favorite part of the episode, Josh's fun fact of the day. Josh, go for it.
Next Monday, November 10th, is a huge day for us in the Midwest, the 50th anniversary of the sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald on Lake Superior.
Absolutely. The 50th anniversary, the sinking of the Edmund Fitzgerald. And let me ask you a question. Have either of you ever come back from a cross-country practice for me, soccer practice for Josh, football practice for Austin, and had that song, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, blasting in the room, played by our producer, Frank Novak? Any of you had that experience before?
I can't say I have off the top of my head. It wouldn't surprise me if he's done it like last year when we were both football managers, but I honestly don't remember. I don't think I can think of a time where he did it.
I do remember a time last year he at least did it for me. Austin, you might not have been in the room, but I remember I was still out in the hallway of our dorm and heard The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald playing maybe in like the second or third week of the school year, very early on last school year, but a great time, a fantastic song, The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald.
And also, it doesn't help that I'm not remembering what song that is off the top of my head right now, but maybe Frank can play it for me when we're done here, but
that's horrible.
I know.
Josh,
that's terrible.
Josh, you know the song, right?
Oh, yeah. I know the song.
Absolutely terrible. Austin doesn't know
off the top of my head. I'm
song.
terrible with names of songs and like what they sound like, unless it's something I really, really know.
The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, one of the most iconic songs maybe of all time. Here it is for you, Austin.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's definitely been times then. Okay.
The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald, a great song. And you know, Austin, I thought of something the other day of the reason why the Edmund Fitzgerald could have sunk. I think 50 years ago in his past life, Josh was playing disc golf and threw a disc so far away that it hit the Edmund Fitzgerald and caused it to sink. Josh,
that would explain it.
Is this true?
It could be true, yeah.
Definitely could be true. The Wreck of the Edmund Fitzgerald 50th anniversary next Monday, November 10th. Well, that's all the time we have today for the Beyond the ARC podcast. We've got a lot of good stuff coming up this week and the week after, so stay tuned. The heart of fall sports is coming up as they reach the end, and we enter winter sports season. But for now,
I'm Josh.
I'm Austin.
And I'm Rob. And that's how you do a podcast the D3 way.
Beyond the ARC is an independent podcast and is not affiliated with or endorsed by the American Rivers Conference.